Hey everyone, welcome back to At the Buzzer. I'm joined by Ryan. Ryan, how you doing?
Brian, I'm doing well overall as an NBA fan. A little disappointed right now, but you know,
Yeah.
yeah,
So we're
just
here to
wait.
talk about the news that just broke. Victor Wembanyama is now out for the season with deep vein thrombosis. So we were looking at because listen, we're two idiots with a microphone.
I
We're
know a
not
lot about
doctors.
deep vein
Yeah.
thrombosis. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm actually going to be able to
Well,
break this
for
down and
anyone,
tell you because
yeah.
because you looked it up on the WebMD and read a bit
Yeah.
about it to me. Yep.
Yep. So for those of you who maybe aren't like Ryan and don't know, deep vein thrombosis is a blood clot for Victor Wembanyama. They found it in his shoulder after the All-Star break, and it can cause pulmonary embolism. That's if the blood clot gets into the lungs. Taller people are more susceptible to it. Victor Wembanyama, he's pretty tall, so it makes sense that something like this might happen. So obviously the Spurs want to take precautions, with one, their star player, two, just like a man's life. You don't want him to have a pulmonary embolism. But let's talk about this from the basketball perspective. How badly does this hurt the Spurs going forward?
Well, I mean, after the season, I mean, it's everything for the Spurs, more or less. That being said, um, I'm going to say something because I just thought of this. It tends to happen when, right? Obviously, the Spurs are built around Wemby right now, 100%, right? Everything they have done is to kind of create this team around the nucleus of Wemby. And, even the players who came in before him, many which have actually like Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, who are actually kind of like primary options who have faded into, right? Faded more and more into being different types of like role players. Devin Vassell, less so, but uh, right, even them, like they were kind of like you could tell they were looking to kind of revolve around a star, right? And Wemby was that. Um, when this type of injury tends to happen with a player like this, like say for instance, I think of John Morant, like when John Morant has been out, um, you know, people always are very quick to cite that like the Grizzlies have in many cases performed better without him or about the same. That being said, they had ties, as a couple years ago when this would go on, they'd be like, oh, is anyone looking at this? I mean, they had Tyus Jones as the best back, who was the best backup point guard at the time in the NBA. But also, I do think sometimes when you take a player like that out and then you have like all these like, guys who sure they like fit a role, but they're all very talented. They tend to step up and, you know, some of them can overperform what we would perceive they'd be capable of, right? So as a result, they end up doing pretty good for a little bit. So that is possible that like some of these guys we see step up, perform a little more. They could be scrappy. I mean, they've made some serious moves around Wemby. Stephon Castle is going to be a really good player. De'Aaron Fox, we know he has no problem being the guy and just driving the ball and scoring. So it works for him for a
Well, I
little
think
bit.
he'll be doing that quite a lot the rest of the
Yeah,
season.
which is honestly kind of unfortunate because it seems like overall it's been a pretty good fit. But it's like, then he's going to have time with this team without Wemby. He's going to feel like his team a little bit. So it's just going to be an adjustment. But we're not going to, I'm not going to read into that. I'm going to assume, they're going to take it, all the steps they need to kind of ease back in. It definitely stinks for the Spurs, but it's not the end of the world. It's the only thing is like I could think where they're going to be potentially competitive this year. What are they in like? They're a playing team right now. I think place wise, I think maybe they could win a playing game.
They are currently 23 and 29 and the 12th team in the Western Conference.
Yeah, it's not, but it's possible that they could be a playing team, win a playing game. I don't know. Everyone is going to say like, oh, with Wemby, you never know. I think the logistics of them, best absolute case scenario with Wemby, if they all had developed by the end of the year, I think maybe they win a first round. I think it depending on the matchup. I don't necessarily know if that happens, but right, it does stink that you might miss out on that. Because you would have had a really good opportunity to get Wembanyama and the rest of the guys some reps, and is it impossible that it happens now? No, it's not impossible. Obviously it's highly unlikely, they could really struggle without him. We'll see, but regardless, it's like you're missing your centerpiece. So any experience you get, it's not as applicable, right? Because like everything is going to continue to go around Wemby. And obviously he's just such a, what I can't think of the word right now. He has such like a
Force,
mercurial, there's such a huge presence, right? Mercurial. Yeah. Presence where it's just like, yeah, he just like has so much gravity. It's going to be crazy without him. It's completely different. But that being said, I do think that there are ways the Spurs can handle it for now, where they can kind of stay on their feet. I think if you're the Spurs, you just hope that he's able to recover safely and he comes back next year. Right. And if that's the case, it's more than worth it. You don't want to risk a serious injury.
Yeah. And I mean, especially when you get talking about like blood clots and stuff like this, where it's like, all right, this is way beyond just like basketball. Like,
that's where it's surprising, because we could talk a lot about like the tall guy injuries, right? Like, it's a huge risk with taller guys, right? There's even been theories out there that Wemby's actually taller than he's listed. Like a lot of guys have been, like Kevin Durant, Kevin Garnett, Bill Walton, some of them for image, right? Some for positions. But what I've heard about, some people have said that Wemby could be as tall as 7'6", but that he is listed at 7'3", because that is the absolute like tallest that has been functional in the NBA, right? Because like, and I do think there are people where if you're like, if you're any taller than that, I might have some concerns. It's like in your ability to stay healthy. We've seen like Embiid. We've seen where Embiid struggled, right? With injuries, obviously. And Chet, Chet is out a lot already. We hope that doesn't continue throughout his career. And there's been other guys, and there's been other tall guys like Greg Oden. I mean, different type of big, but like, I think Greg Oden was pretty good. It's unfortunate, the whole him and Kevin Durant thing, but I don't think you can consider him a bust at all. I think he was a pretty good big for that time. He just, unfortunately, was super injury prone with his size and his weight. The fact that Shaq, he's an anomaly in a lot of ways.
He's like, you know what, I'm just going to do whatever I want. I'm not going to train that hard and I'll be fine. And he was.
And like, I mean, he's just so big and like, right, like massive.
Yeah, not only tall, but just like a huge guy.
Yeah, but like, you look at old pictures of him, it was more just like Bill, right? And he was just like a right? And the way he played with so much physicality and so much athleticism for that size too. It's insane. But so you do see that with tall guys, but this isn't one of those injuries, right? Apparently blood clots are more common with taller people. It would make sense, right? Being so abnormally tall. Yeah, there could be some risks with being that, right? Because like, obviously he's got an incredible body, like an incredible human body. Like, it's very different than the rest. Right. There's a reason he's called the alien, right? He's we're charting
literally like
so
0.1% of like all humans in history.
So it makes sense. There would maybe be some additional risks, complications. And I think what we also know about Wemby is he's just so locked in. I cannot stress this enough. Like, this guy is such a consummate professional. I had been kind of looking in, obviously huge basketball fan. So when I heard, you heard about how big he's going to be, I'd been following him for quite some time, and I knew it sounded like he was going to be a great fit for Popovich. Right. And that proved to be the case like 10 times over. He says all the right things. He cares. He makes all the right choices. I think he actually goes in early to all of his games and like reads. Have you heard about that one? Like, he'll sit and just like read a book. And
I saw Jokic was poking fun at him during the All-Star game. Like, like, what are you doing? Just reading? Seems very, Jokic to be doing that.
Yeah. Meanwhile, it's like everyone's doing workouts, and he's like, "Hey, you see a picture of my new horse?"
Which, fair, fun. I'm sure that's a great time to learn all
Yeah.
about his horses.
Oh, I also don't know if you saw. There's a Netflix documentary on actually the Olympics for basketball. Did you see
Mhm.
that?
I've seen it. I haven't watched the documentary
I
yet.
started watching it. Very good so far. I would absolutely
Okay.
recommend it. It's really cool, and it covers all of the teams. Obviously, like so far, I definitely have seen more of USA. I would guess maybe that's the case, but France is very heavily featured, and the other teams are all featured as well. And I haven't seen it yet, but I was thinking I wouldn't be surprised if Jokic isn't interviewed in it because like they approach me just like,
Right.
no, I'm
No.
done. Like no more. He's like,
Absolutely not.
because I think if you did watch him this summer, I did, you kind of got the vibe. He was just like, I'd rather be at
He
home.
had he had 2 long summers of playing basketball in a row.
Oh yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
he had the championship. I mean, the year before, and I mean, he know right, and he's been incredible this year as always. I mean, his stats
Yeah.
are insane. Um,
Yeah, no. So insane. All right. Well, anything else you want to add on this one before we get out of here?
no, just that. I know this is kind of one of the things that can kind of deter people with the NBA is like the injuries. I would just say that this is not one we saw
That's
coming.
smart.
It's very unfortunate. We're very blessed,
Yeah.
honestly, that Wemby hadn't been injured up to this point. But right, I think it's going to be worth it. I think, like I said, Wemby is so locked in, and I think because of his height, and they know, and just his own awareness, and Popovich's, I would and assume the whole team's like willingness to just like try to work out any kink to ensure like optimal success for him and the team. I really think they're really like honed in on like making sure he's as healthy as possible. That's probably why they were able to detect this. It's probably, if I had to guess, very early on, and they're being 100% as like cautious as possible, right? Like
Yeah.
they're taking the furthest, the furthest cautions needed to ensure that he stays um, healthy and can play a full career. So I would just say, um, I don't think this is anything to be stressed about. I don't think it's like, like how people have tended to with other players be like, oh, this is this long chain of injuries. It's a blood clot. Like we don't really know if it's indicative of anything. They're just being very cautious because, again, this is probably the greatest prospect the NBA has ever
He's the
seen.
future of the league. Like,
Well, no, and like I
yeah.
said, I don't know if the hype. You remember we were kids with LeBron. I mean, Wemby is just something else physically, right? Like as a prospect, the one obviously we weren't alive during it, but like the stories you hear about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar just in terms of what a different type of player he was. And for sure LeBron is that too. But I just mean it just puts into context, like, right, this guy is the absolute future of the league. Like they got to secure the
Yeah.
bag.
No, definitely. Anything you want to promote?
Yeah, I think we got a few other recent podcasts on here. If you didn't check out the All-Star game or dunk contest and would like to, you can check those out. We also are
We also
starting to
cover
do some
some
baseball.
baseball.
Yep,
Yeah.
baseball podcast. Me, Brian, and Rhett. It was a lot of fun. I'm hoping we're going to continue to do that. So please check that out. Look out for
Yeah,
it.
we definitely will.
More stuff. That's about all I got, Brian.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for your time today, and we'll see you all in the next segment.